Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wine. Welcome back to art class. Today is day 4 of our lesson on Romero Britto. And today what we are going to be focusing on is finally we're going to be working to create the patterns in our letters. So you will need your letters that you have created that are divided into different sections. You will need scissors, glue stick, and you will also need your extra paper that you have saved. So let's take a look at some of Britto's patterns. When I look at Britto's patterns, I see some simple shapes like hearts, circles, diamonds, and even flowers. I also see that Britto often used some stripes or some straight lines. I see some other patterns too, so I can certainly create anything that I can come up with. So once you have a few ideas, I want to give you some shortcuts today in how to create those patterns. So you will need your letters, and you will need to think about some different papers you could use to create the patterns. If I know I have orange and blue, and I know my next letters are red, yellow, and purple, I want to be choosing different colors when I create those patterns. So maybe I could think about using a dark purple on top of the orange, and maybe I could use some green on top of the blue. So that's how I want to plan my colors. I just want to make sure that I'm using many different colors. Now, some easy way to make patterns are to always start with stripes. So that's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to take my scissors, and if I want to do my U using some stripes, I'm going to take the color that I want, and I'm going to start off kind of like the black lines. I'm just going to cut those into some different stripes. Now I'm using my scrap paper. I want to work to make the stripes about the same thickness. And then I can just think about how I want to arrange them. One easy thing might be to arrange my stripes going parallel with this. So I could just plan out where I'm going to put my stripes. And then I always want to remember when I'm putting those stripes that I always put the glue on the smaller paper. So if I'm doing stripes, that's a super easy pattern. I'm just going to take the glue, put a little bit of glue on the back of the shape, and I don't want to cover up all of the orange. I want to make sure my stripe goes all the way across, and then I can add a little glue to the next sheet, and I'm just going to keep those stripes going all the way up my letter. In fact, maybe I only need 2 if I spread them out right. Then, once I'm finished with that, and I make sure they're stuck down, I can trim them off. They go all the way across. So I'll just flip my letter over, just like I did the black lines, and I can trim off those extra pieces. And if those extra pieces are too small for me to use, they're going to go into my garbage pile. So now I already have one pattern done. But I could start with stripes, and I could make a lot of things. I said my next color was going to be this bright green. So what if I start with a little stripe? So I'm going to cut off a nice straight strip. And then I could take this straight strip and I could cut it into squares. A square is 4 sides all the same. So now all I have to do is take these strips, go through and cut them, and make sure that I'm making everything with 4 sides all the same. I don't have to measure, but I do want to look. This would not be 4 sides all the same. That's pretty close. So you can see I can quickly cut a whole bunch of squares. And if I have a little bit left over, I can just put this in the garbage pile. And now that I have a whole bunch of squares, I could decide how I want to create those patterns. I could put the squares into rows. If I don't need all of the square, I could look at where I don't need it, and I could trim off that part of the square because that part I don't want to go on top of the black. So I could arrange my squares so that they create a pattern, almost like windows in a building. What if I took those same squares and what if I turned them up on their point, like a diamond? That's another way I could arrange things. And again, if the whole thing is not going to fit, I could figure out what part I don't need and I could trim that off. What if I took my squares and I arranged them so they lined up corner to corner like a checkerboard? If I make them touch perfectly on the corners, I could create a nice checkerboard. And then any of the extra pieces that I don't need, I could trim off. And I might need just a few little extra pieces in there to finish my checkerboard pattern. So I could do a lot of different things with squares. Let's pretend like I've glued this down to create my checkerboard. Let me slide that one off to the side. And let's look at what else I could do. Here I have a letter N. And I need to find a color that I could use with that N. Maybe I could do a dark green, maybe even a pink with that. And I can start the same way. I could start by cutting off a long strip. But now, instead of cutting more squares, what if I cut this into rectangles? So again, I want to work to try to make all of my rectangles about the same. And then once I have cut some rectangles, I can think about how I could arrange those. Maybe I could just simply make a pattern with the rectangles all going straight across. Maybe I could have a pattern with the rectangles, one going horizontally and one going vertically. And again, I can just play around with that until I have a pattern that I like. And when I have a pattern that I like, then I will be ready to glue that down. Here's another idea. What if I start with another strip? Oh my goodness, I'm starting with so many strips. And what if I turn that strip different angles as I'm cutting it? So I'm going to trim off a little edge. I don't need that one. But now watch what I can do. I can cut diagonally this way, and I'll have a triangle. Then I can turn my scissors this way, cut diagonally this way, and I'll have another triangle. And then I can just keep cutting back and forth. A triangle this direction, a triangle that direction, a triangle this direction, a triangle this direction. And once I've cut enough triangles to use, I can think about how I can arrange those to create a pattern. I could have all of my triangles go the same direction. I'd have to fill in the whole area. I would go back and trim off the pieces I don't need. Or I could take my triangles and have one facing right side up and the next one could be upside down. Oh, I think I like that. Then I can have this one. So you can see I can just simply play around with the different ways I could arrange those shapes once I have them fit. I could also use triangles in more than one place. If I do this row like this, I could do another row a different way. So maybe I'm going to have all of these triangles fit in like this. And you can see I would need a few more. So I would come back to my strip, finish cutting, and that would give me part of one to add in here. I could trim that off. If I'm sure where I need it, just trim that little edge off. Putting my garbage in a scrap pile. Sometimes you got to trim a couple times to get it at just the right angle. And that leaves me with another area up here. I could come back into this area. I could even think about making more stripes. What if I took the bright orange and instead of making my stripes really, really thick like before, what if I cut some thinner stripes? So these stripes are a little bit thinner than the purple ones, and I could even make them go a different direction. Maybe I could make them go across, and I could measure how far I need them, glue them on, and then trim them off as needed. So I just want to keep going, thinking about all the different ways that I could create different patterns. Now, a couple of shapes that I haven't shown you yet that there might be another shortcut to. Let's move on. My next letter, I'll do one more. The next one is the letter I, U-N-I-T-Y. Let's say that for this letter, I want to do some hearts. I haven't done some hearts yet. So I want to find a color that I haven't used in a while. Oh, I haven't used that green in a while. Maybe I could come back and I still have some scraps of that green I've saved that are pretty big. Making a heart is pretty easy if I fold the paper. So if I take the paper and I give it a little fold, I can cut out half of a heart. I just want to curve around and then down. And then when I open it up, I have a whole heart shape. So I could fill this pattern with those hearts. I'm going to cut another one, come up and around and down. Looks like maybe I need one more, so I'll fold another section of my green. You see, I'm really trying to use up as much of my paper as possible. Up and around and down. I'm trying to make all of those hearts about the same size. And then I can glue that down. So there are lots of ways I can make shapes from hand, just starting by cutting some straight strips or by folding. Now, one other treat that I have for you before I sign off and start gluing is I'm going to put out at your table some different paper punches. So you can see this has a star on top. This is like a hole punch, except it will allow you to punch things with this shape. So all I have to do is I put my paper in here, I line up the punch, and I push down. And when I do that, it's going to cut out a tiny little star. So I could use the punch to punch out several star shapes. And then I could spread those star shapes out so that they're creating a nice consistent pattern on my paper. You can see I need to punch out a whole bunch more stars to fill in that shape. I have several different punches that you can use. I have a star. I also have a little flower shape. So if you have one of your papers, I could use some flowers. Same thing, I'm just gonna punch. Ooh, sometimes they get stuck. There it is. So when I'm ready to work on my T, I could add in the little flowers. I also have this one. This is really cool. It's a little spiral shape. It goes around and around and around. So I could find another color and I could punch out some of those little spirals. I just have to make sure when I'm punching them, and again, if they get stuck, you can just take your finger and carefully pull them out. Oh, and if they break off, you just got to keep going. Sometimes they break and you have just part of it in there. Make sure your punch is clean, and then you can go for it again. So the punches are pretty easy. You just line them up, punch it out, and you can try those. And then lastly, I'm going to put out at the tables some circle cutters. These cutters work a little bit differently. You just squeeze them together. So if I have another shape where I want to cut some circles, all I have to do with this is put it in and I squeeze and the circles fall right out. So I'm just going to cut off several circles just by squeezing every time. And then I can take those circles and arrange them where I want them to go. You want to see how many different patterns you can create and keep arranging all those patterns on your letters. Once you have everything cut out, then you're ready to start gluing. I hope you have a wonderful week. I can't wait to see your finished letters. And until next time, keep on creating.